It's quick and painless, so.
Well, I'm gonna kind of defer to you a little bit. I just got back in town and I'm honestly at a baseball game, so I don't have the agenda in front of me. Yeah, you have the schedule.
Right. I told him he might be at a baseball game.
I don't know if you wanted to have Randy or Todd or Andy, one of the others, lead if that's more appropriate, since I don't know.
Which of you two want to lead?
I'll defer to Todd. He's much more.
Yeah, I'll probably defer to Todd too. I'm driving right now.
Okay.
I'm driving too, but I don't think I can drive any worse than I normally do. So I can go ahead and we'll go ahead and get started, I guess. Everybody have a chance to review the minutes from last time. Is that what we start with?
Agenda.
Approval of agenda. Yep.
Okay. Everybody approve the agenda. We have a motion to approve the agenda.
I'll motion to approve the agenda.
Yep, I'll second that motion.
Okay. We got Randy and Andy, right?
Correct.
Okay, all approved. I can't see who is all on. I'll go ahead and start with an Spriggs eye, and then just whoever's on.
Meyer, aye.
Palmer, aye.
Dinsmore, aye.
Okay, is that all we got on, Rick?
Mark will be joining us, he said, in just a couple minutes. He said he was on another meeting and it went long, so.
Okay. All right, I can't see the agenda either since I'm driving and probably shouldn't be looking for the agenda. So when I looked at it before, it looked like we just had a UAMPS report. Is that right?
I've got it here in front of me. It's the approval of minutes. Do we need to do that, Mike?
Yeah, we need to approve the minutes. Yeah.
Okay, I'll go ahead and motion to approve the minutes.
I'll second
I'll
that.
go ahead. Yep.
Okay. Mike, you want to start?
Dinsmore, aye.
Palmer, aye.
Meyer, aye.
Spriggs, aye. Okay. Then was it just the UAMPS report after that? We did get a flyer, I noticed, from UAMPS. Is that going to be part of your report, Rick?
Actually, Nikki's going to just update you on a couple items with the webpage as well as the UAMPS rebate program.
Okay, great. We'll turn the time over to Nikki.
Thanks. Oh, I guess I should take that up. So first we just had the city's webpage. I've been working to update all the links and information. We have put the strategic plan on there, as well as the capital's facilities plan, updated tree trimming notice, just about most of the links that we can so far. I'm working on the electrical rates so they can have a link to that, as well as a comparison of the different cities around us and how our rates compare. Let's see what else we have here. We have a few ordinances that haven't been updated for a while. I'm working with Rick on those. He's working on the impact fee analysis or comparison, I guess. And then we will have a whole section that has the UAMP Smart Energy as well as some other energy saving tips. I want to do a section of photos as well that shows our crew in action, the substations and our equipment. Just kind of an overall update for the website. So if you have any suggestions, if you look at it, let me know and we can try to add those in.
Yeah, we found there was a fair amount of links and information that was a bit dated, and so we're trying to get that cleaned up and more current. So Nikki's been doing a great job on that.
As
So
far
the
as UAMPS,
changes, are the changes live now? Have you made the changes?
I've worked with Steve in IT to update the stuff that we have updated, or that's all ready to go, which is the capital facilities plan, the strategic plan. There's an updated service area map that shows the power department's area. Just a general tree trimming notice that tells them that we do it once a year and when to expect that. I think that's the ones we've gotten so far.
Okay, that sounds good. I'll take a look at it when I get home.
Awesome. As far as UAMPS, I did update that flyer to try to have the bolded area as far as like how, well, I think I might have sent you guys the wrong one now that I look at it. I'll make sure I get you the updated one. It has a bolded box that tells them where to go and to get the information. I did talk with Mackenzie, who works at UAMPS, and they have received a few calls asking about information, but no new applications yet. We did put it out on Facebook and in our newsletter. So we have received a little bit of people asking questions that way. That's all I have, though. If you have any questions.
I will tell you, as far as it goes, we just bought a dishwasher, but there's really for a lot of the dishwashers here in town, they're not on the list as approved. So that may be one reason why we're not seeing some of the.
Okay, I'm trying to get an
stuff.
updated list of the appliances from her, but she's currently working on it as well. So I'll try to get that as soon as I can.
I believe if you have one that you could contact her and Mackenzie and see if it is applicable, meets their various requirements. So probably could do some checking into that as well.
Anyway, that's all I have for today.
All right, that sounds good. Rick, you have some information for us?
You bet. I've got the kind of the usual general report on the system and then the UAMPS report. So just again, we've kind of been doing a quick COVID update each month. So far, we're still doing well. And some of us have started getting vaccines, so that should help as well. I'm not sure how many have chosen to do that, but it will, hopefully we're on the downside of things with that whole thing. And I think everybody's ready for that to come to a safe end soon. We've been working, in fact, I just got back from a meeting with the new Green Springs development north of the new Parkway. We met with one of the engineers on that project, and then we'll be meeting with the hospital project tomorrow. And so we'll be having meetings and start coordinating the requirements for electrical and the other utilities with those two upcoming developments. And they're both, I think, anxious to get started fairly quickly. So I think we'll see movement fairly fast on those areas. So any questions on those? The Green Springs development's going to be roughly about 2,500 homes when it's all built out, plus a resort and a golf course. And they've got lots of neat stuff planned there. So. Okay, if we don't have any questions, we've put together our 2022 budget, and that will go to council for their first review next week. Our biggest projects in that budget, this upcoming 2022 budget, would be some improvements, switching improvements at our Main Street substation that will give us more flexibility on the 69 kV line. And then also we're looking to purchase a used bucket truck. We have a 100-foot reach at least. Right now, we don't, on some of our transmission poles, we don't have trucks that will reach it. So if we work on those, we have to borrow it from others. We don't do that work a lot. And so we're going to look at the used route and hopefully save us some money and still can get a piece of equipment that will help meet our needs there. The other projects for next year will be generally smaller in nature to create different distribution ties so we can, as outlined in the capital facilities plan, so we can move the capacity that we have in the lines and substations to where it needs to go to serve the existing and new load. The generation side of things, I talked to Jake and Mike this morning, and we're ready to go as soon as prices dictate that we should run, they'll be ready to go. So there's a couple minor little projects they still got to do, but we could run anytime if needed. So,
Hey, Rick,
uh-huh.
have you guys seen a big increase in prices on materials and stuff?
You know,
Everything in the last few months?
we have somewhat on the prices, not as dramatic as I think the lumber and the home side of things. Where we've had the biggest challenge is actually lead times. The water department's putting in some new wells, and we need 4 transformers for them. And the only way we could meet their time was to actually get a couple reconditioned units, because right now transformers are about 20 to 22, 24 weeks out. Just your average transformer green box that sits by your house are getting out that far in lead time. So we've probably seen more time pressure than money pressure right now, but that's probably coming. Utilities typically lag most of the other construction. So that's been our biggest challenge, is just getting hold of some of the materials. So believe it or not, we can report the 100 South project is actually complete. We've got the poles out. I think we do have just a little bit of concrete to do where we removed one of the poles at board member Spriggs' house. But other than that, all the old poles are gone. And I think it looks really good now. So that's been a while in coming on some of those. So.
Yeah, that turned out really good. They did a great job, and they were awesome to work with. So I really appreciate what they've done.
Well, thank you. I'll pass that along. Yeah, we do have a great crew, and they work well with people, and we try to make sure that our customers their property and stuff is treated like it was our own, and how we would like to be treated. So the next other major milestone on the Kings Road rebuild project on the first phase, which is the west half of that mobile home park. They transferred the last of the remaining load that needed to be transferred on that first phase this morning. So basically all that's left on that first phase project is the demo of the old transformers, which is in our control, fortunately, so it'll go quicker than removing some of the poles. And we have one riser to build. They're out on 1100 East, so probably they get pulled off on different directions, but probably by the end of next week, this year's project for Kings Road should be wrapped up. So they've done a great job in there. Hopefully some of you are able to see your screen. I'm gonna share a screen here, my screen that, did I share? Okay, can you see the offices there?
We see the hallway, yeah.
Okay, so That project, actually, the electrician was in finishing up our new office addition at the plant this morning. I think they're gonna do the final inspection tomorrow. I don't know if Nikki knows for sure. Since I'm not out there all the time. But by the end of this week, that project should be complete. So that's the new hallway. Again, this used to be just a big open room. And we added 3 offices, a two changing rooms and another restroom. So it's turned out really nice. We were able to, like the carpet we reused, they were able to pull it up and reuse it. So I think it turned out really nice. I'll be moving out there and then we'll do some office shifts as well as soon as the furniture comes. So, and that should hopefully be next week sometime. So, so that project has progressed well and is almost completion as well. Another project we have going on, and it's hard to tell, this is up by Bluffview, where we'll do one of those distribution ties we've talked about. It's in the capital facilities plan to connect 2 circuits that we're able to transfer load. And this is up in the Bluffview townhouses, and we actually utilized a directional bore, so they didn't have to tear up other than at both ends. So this is the pipe that they pull back through, and this is when they were pulling it back through the boring. And this is the machine at the other end that has basically the segments are, I think they're about 8 to 10 feet long. It's basically just a horizontal drilling machine. And then we've talked about it a little bit before, but the piece of equipment there in the foreground of the picture is the initial boring device that they push it through, and they can sense where that is and guide and direct it where it needs to go. So in the right application, it's a neat technology. It can be a little pricey, but versus tearing up all the landscaping, it really pays off. And this was crossing the Bluffview. And then once we got out of, so the directional bore goes down in between those 2 fences. And this is where we were crossing there's a 60-inch storm drain right there in the middle of the picture. And this will tie in, and then our crews will do the remaining part of the work. Our next project will be Buena Vista Fiber, which will put, it's called OPGW, which stands for Optical Ground Wire. They'll be starting that probably the last week of April, and that'll connect our last sub to our fiber network. Hopefully, once we get it in the air, the splicing we'll have to do after, but that can be done at any time. So that'll be an exciting, good improvement to get that last link of fiber in. And then Jake continues to work on SCADA upgrades to upgrade the remote terminal unit, or RTU, in our various substations. And we'll be doing some testing this Thursday on our Coral Canyon sub and a new installation of that. So we talked a little bit last month about the impact fee and rate studies. Jeremy and I had a conference call with UFS, our consultant, and went over a few things. And I sent them back some comments. And so we're just waiting on them to incorporate those comments and address those questions. And then our plan is still to have a joint meeting with the Power Board and Council to go over those studies, but they're not quite ready. And as soon as they get that back and we're comfortable as staff, then we'll schedule a time with both bodies to go over those. One thing that came up this last month, that our current net metering policy, we have a limit of 1 megawatt. If we add up everybody's individual systems, and we have a spreadsheet that keeps track of that, and we found out that we had a formula error in there, and so we're actually a little bit above our 1 megawatt by our policy. And so we'll be updating that policy. I'll probably bump that up to 2 megawatts. The purpose of that is just to give us a pause point if we were having any issues. I don't see any issues with continuing that program. So then there are a couple paragraphs in that policy that at times has led to some questions, or we can do a little better job on some of the language. So I'm hoping by next month's meeting, we'll have a red line version so you can see where the changes, our proposed changes are, and you can give us your feedback on that. So one other area that we're starting to see more and more complicated systems. By that, I mean, we've had one that I've been working with for nearly 2 months now. They've got multiple battery systems, generator, and so we'll probably put some provisions in there. If it gets to a point that we need to have an outside consultant look at the installation, we can. And that'll be another thing we'll probably add to the policy. So that'll be coming soon. And like I say, that's not too big of a project, and we should have those or that updated proposed policy for you to look at next month. Mike's been working real hard on updating our underground standards. The last time that was updated is in 2015. The street lights that are shown in our current standard, we can't even get, so we need to update some of those kind of things. That's a fairly large project, so I would suspect that's going to take 60 or so days to get that put together before that'll come to you. But I just want to make you aware we are working on that, trying to get things up to date along with the website and things that we've talked about. Let's see, from Wayne's reports, the poles on 100 South weren't the only poles that we were able to remove from previous projects that TDS and CenturyLink moved off. And so we've removed, goodness, it was probably another half dozen or more poles at different locations on the system. We've got those cleaned up. Our crews, Dan Callahan journeyed out last year. Each year they have an annual banquet down in Mesquite, and he was able to attend with his wife and a few of the crew members to an awards banquet that they have down there. And so that was great to see him make that accomplishment. I mentioned before, Nikki and Caitlin both participated in forklift training, and now I don't know, did you get a piece of paper, Nikki?
Yes, I got an official certificate.
Okay, great. And it was actually a Dixie Tech provided that service, and they did a great job and put that together for us. So it's good to have that. Jake on the substation side of things, he's completed the annual pest control, cleaning all the control rooms. He's updated the emissions report. And like I mentioned before, he's been working hard on some of our SCADA upgrades. So we did have a few outages this last month. Most of them were only affected 1 or 2 customers. We had one that was kind of interesting. It was up almost north of Main Street, not quite to the habitat north of the Parkway. We had a connector that went bad and was kind of arcing, and we had a citizen get a hold of the mayor, and he got a hold of me and actually found a bad connection. So it was good when people will notice things and at least give us a chance to go and look at it. But in this case, we actually found a bad part and was able to get it corrected.
Hey, Rick,
Uh-huh.
can we get, that's the kind of thing we need to have in the newsletter so people will start to react. and
Okay.
do things that'll help. I mean, just if we could do a little write-up that says, you know, had some instances, this is what happens like this, and the customer got a hold of the mayor called the power department, and we got out and solved it. But if you feel free to call the power department if you ever see an issue.
No, that would be, that's great. And like I say, in this case, it was up in the area that's kind of brushy, and, you know, with the wildfire season going, there was actually some sparks that would make it to the ground. So it could have been much worse. And again, there's no way we would have known until it was too late. They were just up hiking in the area and noticed it and let us know. So that's a great suggestion. Okay, just making a note there. Any questions on that side of things? As far as system, it's been fairly quiet, which is always a good thing. On the UAMP side of things, we'll shift into that if you're good with that. We're actually going to have our April meetings in person, or at least it's available to go in person. That'll be the first time in, you know, in over a year. So it'll be good to go up there and meet in person. Kind of a side note with that, they are working on a location for the annual meeting. They are planning on trying to do that. The original location was in, I can't remember the town, but it's in California. And so up by Lake Tahoe. So they may be moving it to the Nevada side, depending on COVID restrictions. And so that will be one that we can invite you guys to attend if you're able. There'll be more information forthcoming on that when it's available. And that's typically held in August. One other thing I wanted to share, has everybody been receiving these monthly clean energy news emails from UAMPS? Does this look familiar that I've got up on the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, that's good to know, because all I see is it going to me, and I'm not always 100% sure where it, you know, what they send to the power board and council and what they don't. So, but hopefully you had a chance to read that. Doug Hunter, the CEO and general manager, had some really good insights, you know, talking about things that are coming up with different legislation proposals. And I think this third bullet point, I think, is a real interesting one that, you know, more and more people are understanding that the entire system can't be run on wind and solar, even with battery, that we need other types of resources in that mix to provide stability to the grid. One of which is nuclear that can provide that dispatchable type resource. So if you haven't looked through that, I'd encourage you to do so. Mike Squires, he is keeping a close eye on the proposed legislation on different things. As far as clean energy standards, carbon restrictions, there's a lot of moving parts right now and different proposals out there. So we just need to be aware of what's going on, and Mike helps us understand the different proposals. And we'll talk about the carbon-free project in a minute too. So one of the other things I wanted to, any questions on that front from UAMPS as far as any of the things that Doug mentioned? Okay, if not, that's great. We talked last month that the prices due to the Texas cold snap for lack of a better term, shot the wholesale power prices high for a little over a week in February. And this was a graph that UAMPS presented at our March meetings. And it shows what the unplanned pool, which is basically market purchases, did through the month of February. And you can see it's just moving along in the 20s to 30s, which is where they typically hover. And then about the 12th is when that event started to happen. And then there were times that went up to over 700. And I think there were some even higher than that. And then as soon as the event goes away, it drops right back down to where we'd normally expect it. And I did some rough calculations and looking at our February bill. This cold snap, I'm guessing or estimating, increased our cost by about 75 to 100,000 for that month. Even an event in Texas has that kind of potential impact to us here. So, and that was twofold. Was the price of gas was driven up, which also drives the price of the power. So even like our Nebo plant, to run it was expensive because the gas to run it was so expensive. And then this is another graph that UAMPS presented that I thought was interesting at our last meetings. If this is kind of a historical look at some of he compared 2014 to 2020 to 2021. The green line was the average wholesale spot market type price in 2014. And you can see for the entire year, it was pretty flat. There was a little bump in February. But then in 2020, which is the blue line, for most months we're under that 2014 amount. But then we saw the huge spike over the summer last July and August. And then the red line reflects an overall average for what happened in February. And of course, the months beyond really March, even I think in this was an estimate. The red line is what they foresee this upcoming summer to look like. So we did buy some power that was about 150, so we'd be a little bit lower than this 185 and the 204 that's shown. But we're potentially could be exposed to that for part of our power resource. Just to let you know what the potential is out there. The good news for the February one that we had here is we only had to buy about 2.5% of our power from the unplanned pool. So we were covered pretty well in that time of year. So it didn't have quite as much impact, other than it did because of the gas price, forced the Nebo price up, and that's where most of our hit occurred. Any questions on that? Okay, on the various other UAMPS projects, the Central St. George project, probably the biggest thing that's going on that is we have our area-wide meeting with all the utilities next week on the 15th. And there's a study group that's been meeting and doing system studies that they'll be presenting, some of their initial findings on that next week. I've been able to attend most of those study group meetings, and right now Rocky Mountain's next major improvement to the area was scheduled for 2028. And the studies are showing that probably needs to be accelerated. And so that'll be an interesting discussion to have with them of what we need to do to accelerate their timeline on some of those needed improvements to serve the area. The overall area grew by about 15% last year in 1 year, partly due to growth, partly due to extreme weather there in the middle of August for about a week. So, so that is an ongoing effort to keep that in front of them. And we'll have a little better, I can report, the findings of that next month's meeting. And I don't know that Rocky Mountain will commit to anything in that meeting, but at least we can give you a temperature of what the representatives are reporting. Because we are in a unique area, because Rocky Mountain's our transmission provider, but they only have about 60 megawatts out of 575 or so megawatts of load. So we are kind of unique that they provide that service, but their native load is one of the smaller loads in the area. The Nebo plant's been running well. They're running it just based on market pricing. So a lot of February, or excuse me, a lot of March, it didn't run. So far in April, they've ran, let's see, this is the 6th. I think they've run 4 of the 6 days. So again, they base that on market prices. The Vail plant, again, similar, as long as the Kern River compressor station is compressing gas, it runs really well and gives us a good resource there. Kind of jumping back a little bit, I touched base on when I had that UAMPS flyer or email up on the government and public affairs. I don't know if you've been following, but part of the Biden plan is he's proposing a $2 trillion infrastructure investment. Of that, there's like $174 billion investment in electric vehicle charging stations across the country. That their goal is to have that network completed by 2030. So we'll have to see. And again, as transportation energy moves from gas, in this case, most of the time to electric, that's going to create more pressure on the electric system, and we've got to find resources to support that. Good news so far is, and I've reported this before, the Biden administration seems to be supportive of the SMR, or the small modular reactor technology that we're part of. But they're still pushing the electric sector to be 100% carbon free by 2035. And I think that's a very aggressive schedule. And it's going to take a lot of funding and a lot of, there's really no way around it other than expanding the nuclear fleet to be able to do that, in my opinion. So the one other area that I think is very good is energy efficiency programs. I think that's an area that could help save a lot of energy. So again, we're keeping an eye on all those different programs and options, and what impacts that could have on UAMPS and Washington as a utility. The Red Mesa steel solar projects that will be coming on for us next year are still on track. We won't see those until, I think the Red Mesa is like December of this year or early next year. So future projects that we've talked about, there hasn't been a lot of progress made on the San Juan solar project. They're still working out some of the transmission issues, what the agreement with the provider would look like, and those kind of things. So I don't have much to report other than I continue to try to cross the T's and dot the I's to where they can have a more definitive number to present to you. Kind of the same thing with the Muddy Creek Heat Recovery Project, which is basically the same technology that's used up at Vail, just at a different location up in Wyoming. They're working with the property owner, with Kern River, and transmission issues there. So more information to come on that. I think I've covered the pool. Our wind projects this last month actually had one of their higher capacity factors. The Horse Butte project was about 49%, and the Pleasant Valley was 51%, which is, they're typically at between 20 to 30%. So we got a fair amount of wind in March from those resources. I really wish we could get that in the summer, which would be really nice. So that's, again, the challenge of that resource. On the Horse Butte 2 project, the big thing there is they're trying to figure out, because not all participants in the current project wanted to participate in the second part of the project. UAMPS is working on how to fairly allocate facilities that were built by the first phase that would be utilized by the second phase. And so again, that's like those other study projects. They're working on some of the details on that, and we'll be presenting that soon. The last one is the carbon-free power project. That is moving forward. They're working on the cost estimates for the 6 and the 8 module. They are supposed to have an economic competitive test in that configuration for us. I'm hoping either later this week or next week. I don't have anything to report on that yet. But they had the initial estimate. They just received it at the meetings mid-March, and they were working through that and then working on the economic test, but I don't have anything, unfortunately, to report on that yet. On the subscription side, the Washington utility that we mentioned before that did a letter of intent for 150 megawatts is still working towards moving that from a letter of intent to a more of a similar to our power sales contract. Washington has some issues with by state law. They can't do the same kind of contracts we can do, and so they're working how to come up with an agreement that would have similar teeth or requirements, if you will, but something that they could still be able to sign. They've been working with other utilities in the Southwest, some investor-owned utilities. So again, they indicated their target is to, improve that subscription by June, and that's coming up pretty quick. So we're keeping a very close eye on that. And that's a lot in a short period of time. Any questions on any of those projects that UAMPS or the city has going on? If not, that's pretty much my presentation. Again, the ones that will be coming up or that we'll bring to you is the net metering update, and then the impact fee and rate studies when we get that back from the consultant. So we will keep you apprised of when those meetings would be.
Thank you, Rick.
All right, that sounds good. Mike, are you in? Do you have everything? Do you have what you need to control the meeting? I'm still.
Oh, yeah.
I'm
yeah,
still
I think
driving
that's all that's on our agenda. Is there any questions? Does anybody have any comments, questions?
The only other thing I had is, and we've talked about it, is the city staff of whether or not we want to keep these meetings virtual for right now, or possibly with some of the restrictions being maybe lifted, or possibly moving them back to the council chamber. Maybe get your feelings. I think I'm good either way.
Has the state given any guidelines on what they're doing on the meetings or what we're supposed to be doing?
Looking to see if Jeremy was still with us. Even with the mask mandate supposedly being lifted, it still limits it doesn't change anything else. And so we'd still be limited to the, somewhat similar to what the city council's been doing. You can only have 20 people in the council chamber. Generally, I don't see that that's going to be a problem for us, and keeping spacing.
What's the main advantage of meeting in the chamber?
The main advantage there, to be quite frank, that I see is just more of a little personal interaction. To be honest, I don't think I've met Andy or Mark personally yet, and they've been on the board for a year, or coming up on a year. So I think it's just the personal side of things. However,
I think
it's more flexible.
Chamber, and we'll stay online.
Pardon?
We'll have Mark and those guys go on into the chamber, and we'll stay online.
And I think that most of the city meetings are going to accommodate both versions. And it does add some flexibility to be online. If you're out of town for work or whatever reason, you can still participate. So, and I don't think we have to decide right now, but maybe give us your thought or send us an email of which you'd prefer. And I think we can accommodate both if we go that direction. So
Why don't we have everybody give that a little bit of thought for a day or two, and email Nikki your thoughts on that. And
Okay.
then at the same time, let's see what the state, what the council what everybody kind of does and says, this is what we're going to return to on the norm. And then we can make a decision there a week before our next
Okay.
meeting.
We can put
Because
it on
don't
our
we just
agenda
have
for
to,
next time.
don't we just have to make sure that we put that in the notice that's 24 hours before our meeting?
yeah, and it would just change. And again, I think we'd probably keep it open to both formats. So, and I think that's going to probably be for this planning commission, city council meeting. For, I think there's some positive things that come out of it. So that's my 2 bits on it. So.
Yeah, I like the idea of having the option. I think that works out best probably for, because I enjoy meeting personally as well, but I like the flexibility also that it provides.
Okay, sounds good. Well, let's just, and I know when Chief Evans, our fire chief, he's kind of been the city's go-to guy that's kept up on. It's when we go to low that the 25 requirement and some of those gets relaxed. So, and we're still in moderate, but he said we're approaching or getting close to when they could possibly move us to low, but we're not quite there yet.
Well, I'll motion to adjourn.
I'll second that.
Who was the motion made by?
Randy Meyer.
Randy, thank you.
And I think, Mike, you're on mute.
That's my problem. Sorry, I was on mute. Okay. Sorry. Randy made the motion. Mark seconded it.
Got it. Thank you.
Todd, do you want to start us on the vote?
Yeah, Briggs, aye.
Palmer, aye.
Meyer, aye.
Hauser, aye.
Dinsmore, aye. Okay.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
you.
Appreciate you taking time. And we'll see whether we meet in person next month or if we're still Zoom or a little bit of both.
Okay, sounds good.
Thanks, Mike.
Nikki
Thanks,
just sent
guys.
out that updated flyer, so take a look at that.
Be safe.
Okay, great.
Okay.
Thanks. Thanks, Rick.
Nikki.
Thank you,
Appreciate
everybody.
it. Thanks, Nikki. Bye.
Have a good day.
Okay. Thanks, everybody.
Yep, see ya.